What's up, everyone, and welcome to ClearTalk. We're back here at the fire pit. So in this video, I want to talk about the Platner sex allegations that recently came out. I think just yesterday, maybe, or the day before. I want to go through those, or at least loosely go through them. But I ultimately want to talk about, though, the reactions. Okay. I want to talk about the reaction and how, yes, it is indeed different. So thank you very much for joining me here. If you are new to the channel, welcome. If you'd like to check out more from the channel, please do so. Links and stuff are in the description for this channel and my other channels as well. Check out them if you would like. Consider subscribing, like, share, all that good stuff to get more videos in front of more people. All that's free and helps out the channels tremendously. If you would like to go further, there's Patreon there, $2. You can support any of the channels you would like to help grow those channels, help grow Patreon, help grow JMD Nation. Any way you support is very much appreciated. I thank you very much. And if you are a member of Patreon, you also get a discount on the merch. So check out the merch. I have merch for all the channels as well now, so check that out. So anyway, thank you very much for joining me. If you're returning, you're freaking amazing. Welcome back. Keep coming back, because you're what makes JMD Nation. Okay, so what do we have here? All right, I want to start off with saying this. I don't normally get that much into specific candidates a lot, especially over specific seats that might be dealing with the House or whatever, unless it's like something that is like in a greater context, talking about multiple people in a overarching like condition or something. Like I don't typically talk too much about that, and I don't typically really engage a lot with that. So when it comes to Platner, I haven't full on been keeping up with him, to be honest. I do know about the previous allegations that were made, and I kind of vaguely like paid attention to it, and I saw that a lot of people were kind of pushing it off because there really wasn't any substance to those allegations. And so and people were throwing off. I was like, okay, it must not be that big a deal. I'm not going to worry about it a whole lot. I didn't really talk about it. Again, I wasn't really involved a whole lot in it. I do understand that the idea around Platner and the reason why so many were focused on trying to support and endorse him, especially progressives, because of his campaign ideas and his platform, is very much progressive, very much in the more social democratic kind of vein. All right, and so there was a lot of people from my arena, my area, very much endorsing and supporting him, because for one, it would upend Susan Collins' seat in Maine, which is, you know, a Republican. Although she is a little bit more of a midline Republican, she does support things that progressives would very much so like to not be there, because ultimately, even though she disagrees with a lot of stuff, especially around Trump, her track record for voting still very much aligns a lot of times around what this administration does. So words don't always follow into line when it comes to votes. So there's very much an intent to not just remove her from seat, which she has held for a long time now, but to place somebody in that seat that not would only just be, you know, of the opposition party from Susan, but actually be of a progressive ideology, progressive policies, progressive things that would actually benefit and help people, not just in Maine, but, you know, hopefully across all of the United States, if there was a larger coalition of progressive candidates in the House. So I understand why there was such a push and endorsement for this guy. But unfortunately, with these newest allegations that have come out, they're pretty rock solid. I have watched parts of the interview. I have heard the arguments around the what was put out by Politico, I think, and other stuff, and it's pretty rock solid. He was apparently dating this lady for a couple of years, but ultimately in one engagement, the last engagement I from what I understand, really, between the two, he was quite drunk, let's just say, out of his mind apparently, although she made some comments around she felt like he was in and out of like understanding of what he was doing. Like for a split second he would seem like he knew what was happening, but then all of a sudden it was back to complete like drunken blindness. But ultimately, even with her allegations are that she, said no multiple times, tried to refuse, told him to leave, told him to stop, but ultimately she complied because she was in fear of what if she didn't comply, that he potentially could, what would come from that, in a drunken state, if in a drunken blind state he could act in a way of in doing and pressuring and pushing himself on her in this manner, what could he potentially do when rejected or angered or what, like, she just didn't know. She was scared. So, and that's her story. That's what her side of it is. And there's no reason to not believe it. And he ultimately raped her. Even in the thing here is there's a degree that, yes, even if this is litigated out, he very well could probably make an argument around temporary insanity. He was completely drunk. He didn't know. He didn't remember. He didn't know. And even she apparently sent him texts afterwards, stating, what you did that night was just uncalled for and was wrong, and or whatever. And he, according to her, he never replied. We have no evidence of these. We have no evidence of any of the text messages because she deleted it all. She deleted her account. There's a reason, and there's no, so a lot of this, there's a lot of it's just hearsay or her story, but there are also some evidence that she has presented that does kind of comply with that gives backed up idea that this is what actually happened, that she had with other people, text messages with her friends or something like that. So again, he could probably make an argument that, temporary insanity or whatever, and maybe get off a little light if he was actually charged and whatever. But and there's an argument, I guess, that could be questioned around, like, in that type of state, you have no control. You're not technically even consenting to what you're doing, but yet you're still doing the act. So I can understand there's a lot of nuance and thinking around from his side, but ultimately from her side, that doesn't change the fact that she said no, that she felt in an unsafe manner, and she had this acted upon her that was wrong. Okay, regardless of whether he remembers it or not, or or even even in his own self would have consented, would have done it any if he was in complete complete lucidness. All right, it still happened. And I think that is just another building block on the concerns around Platner that have been concerns now for a while, is that he seemingly has problems. He has PTSD. He has an alcohol problem. That while his platform apparently has been around like rehabilitation and trying to, and about rebuilding, being a new person and all this kinds of stuff. To pretend like you are a better person than what you may have previously been, or that you have worked on yourself and fixed a lot of problems and you're now moving in a positive. This stuff just happened 5 years ago. Okay? And there's already been other things that have questionably happened even more recently, or that, especially just around like alcohol and drunkenness, and like that he has not actually fully dealt with these problems that he has internally. And so that is already, people have been throwing up red flags around him for a while now because of those things, and this just tacks on that domino. So there's a problem there. And again, I am really just learning about a lot of the stuff. It's reason, and I didn't really get in on him to begin with, but I can understand why a lot of people did, because of his platform and what he was pushing towards for policy, for laws, conditions around, it was a very progressive platform. And I would understand, again, trying to promote him if he indeed was going to, influence laws and policies around those things. Fine. But here's what's happened, okay, since this has come out, and very damningly. Now, he so far has acknowledged through video that it come out, but he has denied the allegations, but even still openly argued that he could see the political ramifications of this type of allegation, and so his people were trying to work out the steps forward for his campaign. But you have had numerous Democratic members and leaders have come out and addressed publicly and even some directly to Platner that he needs to just step aside, that they're pulling their endorsements, they're pulling their support, and that he needs to shut down his operations and step aside and let somebody else step in his place. And coming from several different places within the Democratic Party. Some that I very much respect, some that I quite frankly don't really give two shits for, but nevertheless they have still come out against this because it is the right thing to do. It is the right thing to do to just step down, okay? The litigations, whether it's true or not or whatever, there's too much baggage. There's too much of a problem with you as a candidate when you have so many of these things, allegations and issues, that you're ultimately going to hurt the vote. You're ultimately going to hurt support for you, when the ultimate goal is to try to make sure Susan Collins doesn't get back in the seat, but also place somebody there that would actually benefit not only the people of Maine, but benefit the House as a whole, and benefit what is becoming a very strong faction in the Democratic Party here of late, which is progressives. Even though there's a strong coalition of like mainstream Democrats that are pushing back against it as usual, and playing the games of the Republican Party as usual, or Trump regime as what they've been doing here lately with the whole communist shit. There is a growing movement. The progressive movement is getting stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. Because of the Trump administration, MAGA, and what has taken over the Republican Party, and the just complete and utter just patheticness of the mainstream Democrats that just seem completely incompetent in doing anything about it, or actually improving things even when they are in power. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. So, there is a bit of a problem here, because the primaries have already happened, which a lot of people are pointing to. This is very convenient. This seems very convenient that she would come out. She states that she waited so long because she was conflicted with the fact that she actually agrees with his platform. She agrees with the things that he argues for and what he wants to fight for, but she ultimately felt like he was just lying about like the whole redemption, rehabilitation, like narrative that he's been playing. And so she ultimately felt like the truth needed to be told, regardless of what it might ultimately cause around his campaign. So a lot of people feel that that's very convenient that happened at this moment after the primaries. She could have came out, which she technically was a part of the original allegations, but at that time she didn't tell the full story. She just said, yeah, he's got some problems, he's, a little uncomfortable when he's drunk and blah blah blah, but she never actually come out with the whole thing until now. So this causes a bit of a problem, because very soon, I think as quick as like I want to say the 16th of this month, he has to decide to step down or continue his campaign, or be forcibly, I guess, removed maybe, but he has until the 16th to make a decision on his own campaign, or whether or not he steps down, and how, and the potential influence he could even have in trying to make sure of who actually steps in his place, because there are a few different options. And the one that would be the closest to him, and quite frankly, from what I can see, should have been the main nominee all along, more than likely, is Troy Jackson. And there could potentially, he could go two ways. He could either use this time that he has to, because ultimately he's done. There's no doubt about it. He's done. But he could use this as a way to either push for Jackson to be the replacement, or he could push for some sort of quick polled like delegation happen within the DNC to do some sort of actual vote thing, even if it is an internal thing, between the potential candidates, instead of them just outright naming somebody, because then you're kind of placed into this real bad faith argument that the Democrats had back with Kamala and Biden during the presidential campaign. And while this is a little bit different, because if they were to just outright just name somebody, that very much would still come out to be, or at least look and appear very undemocratic. But he very much could press for some sort of delegation vote, which would, ultimately encompass polling and the will of the people to at least some degree, or just outright try to influence for Jackson to actually just be the replacement. We're going to have to wait to see what happens there. But again, I feel like all along, Troy Jackson probably should have been the candidate. He has a very much cleaner, straightforward background with no baggage or issues, it seems, and but yet he still falls within the same policies and arguments and things that he wants to fight for that Platner does. But apparently Platner's just, because he apparently is from a more wealthy family, has more ease of getting to this kind of thing and affording this type of candidacy and blah blah blah. He just had a better influence and whatever. The conditions set better for him. He have gained more popularity easier and whatever. But either way, we're going to have to wait and see what happens on that front. But what I ultimately wanted to get to here is that there is a difference, okay? There is a difference in the reactions, okay? Because you saw immediately from the Democratic side, from liberals, in the liberal side, even progressives, okay, that as soon as this type of allegation come down, and as damning of the evidence as it was, a complete about-face, even in a moment of utter embarrassment, because you've had numerous politicians and supporters, people that, full on endorsed and supported this man, and was, making an argument to fight all the way to the end for him. And as soon as something so concrete as this came out, they about-faced 180, waving all that embarrassment of, oh my gosh, I endorse this person and this actually is happening. They complete about-faced in 180 and say, no, you got to step out. This is bad. You've got to step out. We can't endorse this. There's a problem here. And we just need to go on. That's very different from the other side. Because if this same instance happened on the other side, which it has multiple times, as a matter of fact, the main man in the White House right now, this is exactly the same thing. The other side, the conditions are different. You will defend and protect no matter what, just to maintain what you think is ultimately, because it's the policy over morality. I've seen over and over and over and over again apologies and cover-ups and protection for situations like this on the right, because you're too proud, too careful on your to uphold your image, or the image that, or to uphold you and yours winning at, regardless of what, the cost you, that you will overlook these types of allegations and you will protect and press forward with them to continue that candidacy so that you can ultimately win no matter what. And that is the stark difference between the left and the right, who actually upholds morals and who doesn't, who decides feelings and policy over morality, who defines winning as more important than morality. And while I understand there is a lot of argument when it comes down, when you break it down to certain policies and certain thoughts around certain things, you know, Israel or war or this and there's some blurred lines between Democrats and Republicans in a lot of space. I completely understand. There are some blurred lines when it comes to policy and law and, you know, thoughts around the southern border, immigration, and education, and there are blurred lines in some instances. But when it comes to something so egregious as this, there are strong, hard lines dividing the two. Republicans would not have done this. Republicans would not have about-faced, even in embarrassment. They would have not done this. And you know it to be true. You quite literally voted a known criminal into office, and you happily did so. You have made your arguments that you wouldn't even care if he murdered somebody on 5th Avenue. You would want him in office. You have openly stated over and over again, you don't even care if he's in the Epstein files, you still want him in office. There is a stark difference. There is a stark difference. No matter how hard we might want to support a specific candidate, and I would even argue that this is even more so for progressives than mainline Democrats. But whenever there is a candidate that something like this comes out, something so damning and so wrong, and even egregious comes out, we have no problem about facing, lowering our head in shame, and be like, you know, that's my bad. I fucked up. I didn't realize. I shouldn't have been supporting him. I didn't know. But now that I do, I'm sorry. I have to pull it. I'll move to this person, and we'll try to push. Like, there is defined red lines, and we about face, because we know it's wrong, and we're not afraid to say that we fucked up and made a mistake, and we'll turn around and go to someone else. But that's not the case on the right. On the right, you're so fucking proud and so hard, again, on trying to save face and maintain the fact of you. We even do it even though we know that might cause us to actually fucking lose. But we're more acceptable of losing than somebody winning with that type of background and that baggage. You're willing to accept the baggage. You're willing to accept that type of background. You're willing to. That's the reason why we have members on the Supreme Court that have sexual allegations. That's the reason why we have somebody in office right now as president that has those allegations, and even been convicted of criminal charges around allegations. There are people all within Washington that have had allegations on the right that you constantly support and just excuse away all that baggage just so that you can stay in power or maintain your positions or maintain what you want to happen in America. That's not staying. That's not being moral. That's not staying true to any kind of internal righteousness that you may think you have, or some validity of you being better than well, quite frankly, us. There is a stark difference. It is, while there are blurred lines and there are arguments to say sometimes that, fuck, it looks like, doesn't matter, Democrat, Republican, they're all the fucking same. That's just not true. That is just not true. There are clear differences. There are clear lines that liberals, Democrats, progressives will not cross, that Republicans over and over and over again prove and show that they have no problem crossing. Even to allow fascism to take over this country. So I hope that Platner does ultimately step down, regardless of whether or not these allegations are true or not. It just is too much of a problem. It's just a whole bunch of building blocks on building blocks and problems and issues that have just ultimately surrounded this guy. And when, you know, it's starting to look like where there's, you know, fuel, there's fire. So he needs to step down, and I hope that there is a proper process for somebody to replace. And hopefully, again, even hopefully it will be this Jackson guy. Who knows? Maybe I will actually try to be a little bit more engaged in this now. I don't know. We'll have to see. But again, because I don't particularly just get in specific states, specific seats to try and try to hold on, you know, or know the ins and outs of all that. But this is a very interesting case, and I thought it brought up an interesting point, though, that in the reactions that have happened, there's a clear difference, and it's time for the right to admit it. Thank you very much for joining me. Let me know what you think, and until next time, peace. Clear Talk. I'm out.